Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Callie Johnson and I am an embodied dance teacher. On this channel, I like to talk about mental health, dance, spirituality, and living your best life. On today's video, I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to just get to know me a little bit better, why I decided to turn my pain into my purpose and become an embodied dance teacher. So please stick around and I hope you go ahead and just hit that subscribe button, help me grow this channel so I can reach more people. So we will just start from the beginning. So I am originally from Tennessee. I grew up in the Chattanooga area. When I was just a wee little thing, I started in baton and softball, and eventually got over to doing more of like competition style dancing. I was definitely the natural performer, being probably the youngest sibling of two girls. There's even a video of me from a long time ago in one of my first baton classes where we were doing this thing called the wiggle wobble, and I had someone point out that they saw all the little girls around me were doing the wiggle wobble with their eyes rolling, doing this. But of course, I'm over there doing the best freaking wiggle wobble you ever saw in your life. So needless to say, from a young age, I was wiggle wobbling through the rest of my life. Around the time when my parents split up, when I was about 9 years old, my dad took me to see the traveling Broadway musical Cats that came through Chattanooga. At the time, I was doing softball and hadn't been doing baton anymore at that point. But when I saw Cats for the first time, I said, I want to do that. I want to do that. I wanted to be the white cat, Victoria. Fast forward, I went and did competition dance for several years. Shout out to my old studio, Crawford Dance Studio. And luckily, by the time I hit middle school, there was a performing arts magnet school that had opened up a few years before in Chattanooga called Center for Creative Arts. And it was a 6 through 12 school. And I went there from 6th grade and graduated as a senior in high school. And throughout that time, that's when I really started to fall in love with particularly modern dance and ballet. I loved dance for the sake of expressing emotion, and anything that looked weird, I really liked. Although I did really love doing things like jazz and tap and all the things. From there, I left and went to go pursue my undergraduate degree at Middle Tennessee State University. I ended up studying dance for 4 more years, which was fantastic. I was presented with so many wonderful opportunities where I got to go perform in different places around the United States, take master classes with some phenomenal teachers. I had some amazing professors that raised me up through that time too. And that was actually my first time getting introduced to somatic work with Marsha. Also, big shout out to Marsha. But at that time, I started to get really burnt out. And once I graduated, between like performing arts, politics, and really feeling like I only had 2 pathways to go with in dance, which was move to a big city and find a dance company to perform with, or teach primarily kids. I just didn't really feel like I fit that mold anymore. And from there, after about a year after college, I decided to quit dancing. Around the time that I quit dancing, I was primarily just working in the restaurant industry, trying to make money so I could go live like a little hippie chick, going to see bands all the time and festivals, which, you know, at the time, that's totally fine. In my 20s, go live your best life. And I would say at that time, I was very much what I like to call a Dawkins atheist. I think having been raised in the South and very much not being a fan of organized religion and dogmatic practices, I was pushed to the very opposite end of the spectrum, and absolutely nothing God spiritually related at all in my life at the time. I ended up moving to Colorado for 1 year and then moved back. I was what I would consider kind of a train wreck at the time, just partying too much, just kind of living without purpose. And when I moved back to Tennessee the first time, I ended up meeting a person that I would consider, who I thought at the time was going to be the love of my life. And once I moved back to Chattanooga, we immediately hit it off and we're super in love. And I moved up to Knoxville so we could be together. 9 months into the relationship, I came home, and it was at the end of July. It was one of the hottest days of the year, highest humidity. And he was suffering a severe asthma attack. And although I got the ambulance over there, he ended up going into cardiac arrest and was in ICU for 3 days until we had to call it, unfortunately. And he lost his life. And that was probably the biggest traumatic experience of my life. And from there, I kind of lost touch with reality. I thought everything was played out and laid out for the rest of my life. I've got the guy, I'm going to marry this guy, we're gonna have kids, and I wanted to open up my own restaurant at the time. No, all taken away. And going through that set me off into a really bad spiral with my mental health and the way I treated myself and others around me for several years. Up until that point, had never experienced grief on that level before. The year prior, I had lost my cousin and my grandmother. And while those really hit hard, I think the trauma of losing a partner at age of 26 or 27 and being eyewitness to it is pretty effed up. But I was not equipped to handle it at the time. And I was already struggling with my habits up until that point. So for several years after that, I really struggled with drugs and alcohol, and just not being able to take care of myself. So needless to say, that was a very, very dark time in my life. I did start with EMDR therapy a few months after he passed away. And this was very new to me, doing any kind of therapy at all. But I will say, having had gone through after that, making multiple attempts on my life and just not being able to deal, I needed to do something. And the therapy that I started off with was super helpful because at the time I was having nightmares, unable to sleep. Everything was just a shit show. So I started off with that for the first year. And then once I started getting back onto my feet again, working again, and started thinking about my overall health and well-being, getting back into dance started crossing my mind. And I wanted to do something a little bit different since I had burnout so bad with more traditional genres of dance, and looked into going to try out fabrics. So, well, I was still in Knoxville at the time, and I went to their circus studio and got to test the fabrics, trapeze, and lyra, and fell in love with lyra. And then for the next year and a half, 2 years, I was in and out of it a little bit. And it was really a great way to get my body moving at the time. I wasn't super consistent with it because then I started going to beauty school, realizing that bartending was not a good lifelong gig for me. And so I kind of fell off the bandwagon with that. And but it was always in the back of my mind that I wanted to get towards doing more dance related things. All around that same time, I was really struggling with my weight as well and just overall health issues. And at that time, I decided to start cutting out meat and decided to go towards a more plant-based vegan diet, which I've stuck to this day. And my sister was really encouraging that I look into meditation at the time. Side note, the first time I ever tried to meditate, I started seeing demonic figures. So I didn't really pick that back up until later on the road. Fast forward, I finished beauty school, and this was around entering 2019. And I had broken up with the person that I was with at the time. I just wasn't there yet, but I started, well, now that I look back, I was probably going through a manic spell at this time, but I started dating somebody online and decided to move up to Massachusetts back in 2019 during the summer. Hindsight, not the greatest idea, but life is going to lead you to exactly where you need to be, right? And that was also ended up being a very traumatic time in my life as well. However, I got really interested in getting back on the lyra again and started singing as well. And then what happened after 2019? Oh, the pandemic happened. And unfortunately at the time, I was living in a situation that was what I would consider abusive. And it got dark again. And at that time, I think a lot of us, started having more spiritual epiphanies. And while I didn't really quite realize that what I was experiencing was abusive, my core knew something was wrong. And this is when I really started tapping into my intuition at the time. And I had a dream during lockdown that I was living back in Colorado again. And I'd already been looking at leaving at some point. And I woke up and I knew that's exactly what I needed to do. I knew for sure. And so about a month and a half later, I packed up all my stuff and drove across the US again back to Colorado, which ended up being one of the best experiences of my life. And even before I moved to Colorado, I was really trying to get my health back again. And I was sad, of course, because I just got back into lyra, but then everything closed down, so I couldn't do it again. But right when I got back out to Colorado, everything started opening up again. And I got back into doing hair. And I found a dance studio, a pole and aerial studio that was right down the road from where I was living in Boulder at the time, and really just was able to absorb myself back into dance again. And it made me realize that dance has to be a part of my life in some shape or form. Even if it is minimal, moving my body in an authentic and creative way is a part of my soul, my being, who I am. After I had been training for a little bit, we finally got to put on a performance for the studio, since the studio had to shut down because of the pandemic. And I had never performed on the Lyra before, and I was so excited because I missed performing so much at this point. So I really wanted to make something meaningful out of doing my first performance on the hoop. You know, even though, you know, I'm not at this point like this insane aerialist, but, you know, I can do a couple of good tricks, and I just want to do something that meant something to me. And it kind of clicked at the time that I had really started doing Lyra as a way to help me heal everything that had happened with Jonathan's passing. So it occurred to me that, wow, why don't you do something to commemorate him? Because in a way, he kind of gave you the gift of this art form. And so I met, this is where synchronicities really start happening. I hit up some of the instructors to help me put together my first piece for this. And my first day with Kaz, I told her while I was doing the piece that I wanted to do a commemorative piece to my partner that I'd lost years ago, and that I was gonna do it to a Grateful Dead song. And she looked at me and said, "Callie, do you know I'm training to be a death doula right now?" So there's no coincidences, right? But just the time spent putting my heart and soul into thinking about him while I was creating this movement, going through and remembering old memories that made me happy, and just trying to release, you know, the sadness and the sad memories, was one of the most cathartic experiences of my life. Before I did the actual performances, there would be times where I was up in the hoop and I would have to get down and just start crying. But what it released for me, I mean, words can't compare, and I'm crying right now as I'm saying this, but it'll kind of lead me to my point. When I did the show, the performance, I literally could feel like a presence that opened up with me when I did that, because in a sense I was channeling his essence, and it felt so good and it made me feel happy. I felt that happy feeling that I got from that human being that brought me so much love in my life. And after I performed, I had one person in the audience that came up to me and said that she had lost her partner a few months prior, and how much that meant to her that I shared that. So when I say it is important to share your story and turn your pain into your purpose, you never know how much it can affect other people. So leading into my journey of becoming an embodied dance teacher, after that performance, I ended up doing another one a few months later and kept training, and then got offered to do an apprenticeship to learn how to teach Lyra, which was fantastic. And that was a synchronicity in of itself as well, because the day that I thought I would like to teach Lyra, maybe one day, I got a text message from Melody and she's like, "Hey, do you want to learn how to be an instructor?" Again, there are no coincidences. So around that time, after I did my apprenticeship, it just started occurring to me that there's something going on with, like, how can I not just be an instructor, but how can I help people with dance to not just look at it as like making art, but really as a form of therapy and in the therapy and form of spirit as well. And at the time, I was struggling being a hairdresser as well. Like, I enjoyed the creativity of being in cosmetology, and some of the people that I met were fantastic, and I loved interacting with people one-on-one. But it just felt like everything was going against the grain with that. And anytime I would do something dance related, the door would just easily open. And so I started doing my research, and I came across the Embodied Dance Teacher training that was created by Allison Pagano. And I absolutely knew this was exactly what I needed to be doing in some shape or form. So I started my training with her at the beginning of 2023. And my heart just goes out to her so much. Not only did she give me the tools to be my most authentic self in the work that I'm trying to create, but I did not know like how much more of a spiritual journey this body of work was going to be. And you have to be the work to do the work. And while I'd done so much fabulous therapy, I've had some great therapists, the one thing when it comes to energy healing and embodiment is really touching the energy that lives within the body, and where we are holding negative thought forms, patterns, stories that aren't true about ourselves, other people's energy, all kinds of things, and how that lives in the body. And I had to go through and do all of that work, and it has cracked open so much for me, especially with traumas that I didn't know were still living inside of me from years ago. And my intuition, my understanding of the ether and spirit, and now considering myself a person that's spiritual but not religious, healing my quote-unquote God wound. And understanding too, I went into this work really wanting to specifically work with those going through grief, and I still do, but understanding that there's so much more that I want to help others with. What I did when I created my piece for Jonathan was embodied dance, and I didn't even know it at the time. I literally went in and rewired my body through the healing art of movement. And little did I know at the time that that was actually the conduit to send me on my dharmic path, to help others through movement. And I'm so fortunate that there was somebody to mentor me and guide me and understand, like, oh, what you experienced is real, and here's how you can help others do it and do this within yourself. And I'm really starting to see the bigger picture on how I can help others. And embodied dance is for anyone. It's for the non-mover, the experienced mover. There's so much to this body of work, and I so much believe in it, and it's helped me find my authentic self. My biggest goal, whether that be with this YouTube channel or through energy healing and embodied dance, is that I serve humanity and I serve others by helping you take your power back. Understanding that you're not a victim to your life. The path of this body of work has released and opened up so much more of me than I ever thought. I feel like this is my dharma. Not just working with dance for grief, that is a big part of it, but finding my own spirituality, activating my intuition and my clear senses. I'm really starting to see a much bigger picture of how I can help others, whether that's about talking about bipolar, offering ways to meditate, grief, sexual trauma, anything. I want to be here as someone that is a guide to help you take your power back. Understand that you are not a victim of your life experiences, and you're not just a meat suit walking around aimlessly with no purpose. I want to help you reestablish your connection to your body and how that plays into your experience. Understand, I'm also still learning and do my best to keep an open and malleable mind and an open heart. Let's learn together. And if you're just starting out, I would love to help. I consider myself a reformed atheist, the spiritual, not religious type. I want this work to be accessible to anyone, no matter what part of the spectrum on belief you are at. Because we all deserve to live in our power, heal what ails us, and be master creators of our lives. One quote that's been on my mind recently, and I'm pretty sure I heard Greg Braden say this. It might have been Dr. Bruce Lipton. I'm so sorry. Hopefully I get this right. But it was, speak to your consciousness in a language that it understands. And for me, that language that my consciousness understands is movement and dance. And it has helped me through so much. And I really want to be there to help you all in a way you never thought before. And I am still learning a lot as well. I've been going through this phase where I've just been like a sponge, absorbing, and now I am ready to give back, but know that I'm still learning with all of you. So, yeah, embodied dance. So yeah, that is, I guess, kind of the long story on how I got to where I am today. And then obviously, I just left a 3.5-year run in Colorado, which was fantastic and challenging in all the ways that I needed at the time. And just shout out there. I am opening my books to start working with people one-on-one that are ready to start changing their lives through movement. So if you are interested, please just shoot me an email at callie.johnson.dance@gmail.com. I'm located in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but I can also work via Zoom as well. So that's all I got for you all today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I look forward to putting some new content out there, a little more dance related, some more mental health stuff, spiritual stuff. Let me know what all you like. Just leave a comment. Make sure to like this video and please share with others. I love you all so much and keep healing. Be fantastic. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.